Hello friends, hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be going live on this commentary about the two sessions and particularly the coverage from Western media about the two sessions. For those of you who don't know about the two sessions, this is perhaps the biggest demonstration of democracy in China. As those of you who don't understand, China understands this whole process of democracy in two sides. One is the election of those representatives, those people who are going to represent the people at local levels in Beijing, in the National People's Congress. This event is so important because it takes a very key part of democracy, which is a consultative side, is the part where propositions, ideas, suggestions, projects are presented at a national level from these local representatives. So there's thousands of people who travel to Beijing to present their ideas, to present their projects, to present what they have achieved and what they want to do towards the future. First thing that I would like to know, hello to the 10 people that are watching right now. Can you let me know in the comment section below if everything's okay, if we sound is okay and audio, everything's okay? Let me know in the comment section, please, so that I know that we're good, and then we continue with today's live stream. A quick message will really help me out. All right, while I wait for that, I'll continue talking to you guys about what the two sessions really is. For some people, thank you, Susan, thank you very much. For some people, you could probably relate it to the State of the Union speech. This is part of what they do. So what we heard yesterday from Li Qiang basically was presenting what was accomplished and what were the directions that China was going to take for 2024. There are a few things that I will mention. Let me visit my notes here. All the things that were mentioned and that we're going to talk about how the West actually understands what was said, which is not always the best interpretation. So the first thing that they mentioned was growth. Everybody comes to Beijing wanting to hear the big one. What is China's prediction or projected growth for 2024? China has a history of, well, its leadership has a history of being very cautious, as in they sometimes say numbers that are not exact. So it's always around 5%. So it gives them a little bit of leeway, whether it's going to be falling a little bit short one year or if they exceed their expectations, then it looks good in the eyes of the people. So usually they exceed expectations. So when Li Qiang says, oh, we expect that it's going to be around 5%, we can look back at what they said in 2023, which was about the same, and it was exceeded at 5.2%. So that's an important thing to bear in mind, that these numbers are given to people with room for them to exceed what's expected. So 5% is a very good number for growth when you compare it with what is taking place around the world. When you take a look at the growth that took place in the United States in 2023, that is touted as, oh, fantastic, phenomenal, look how good the economy is doing, when it was less than half of China's. So let's wait and see what takes place in 2024 for America, for Germany, for the rest of Europe, for the UK in terms of growth. And we then compare notes and see which politicians are doing better, which system is doing better in terms of determining what the future is going to be and the growth and the benefits to the nation. Now, the second thing that I was addressed during this presentation by Li Keqiang, by Li Qiang, sorry, was the military spending. This is something that a lot of people, particularly people from MIC, are really interested in finding out. The percentage that was announced is 72% growth year on year. Is going to be 72% of the GDP. So this being an increase, a slight increase, this is going to represent 1.6 trillion yuan of investment in military. Now, this is going to be used by enemies of China that are going to say, you see, China is getting ready to invade Taiwan. They're demilitarizing. Look at the expenditure. Why are they spending so much on military? You've got to step back and look at how surrounded China is by U.S. military. And if you know the facts, America spends more in their military than the rest of the 10 countries below them combined. So when you see China improving the military and investing in them on for protection for the country and the sovereignty, when you see that there are actually troops and armament from the United States in Taiwan, they need to ready themselves. It's not about invading, it's about protecting. And this is coming on the heels of, well, more visits from diplomats, breaking protocols, the 3 communiques, breaking all kinds of agreements. So China cannot trust what America is doing. So increasing that military spending is wise, is a safe thing to do. You're going to find people saying, oh, you see, they're getting ready. But you got to see China's perspective. You don't want to be caught with your pants around your ankles when something happens. You want to be ready and you want to be prepared to defend Taiwan from America's invasion, which has been taking place in slow motion. Now, the third thing that was announced, which is quite interesting, is the ultra long-term bonds. They're going to release 1 trillion yuan, which is about 139 billion US dollars. This is something interesting. This is something that people were not expecting, and not a lot of people were thinking that this was going to take place, but it was announced yesterday. Now, another one that's very important and is one of the attacks that a lot of Westerners have on China's economy, it's inflation. Well, apparently is deflation. What does that mean exactly? It means that people are not spending money. This is an issue that China is having. It's basically households not using their savings. Currently, excuse me. Currently, there are about 56 trillion renminbi in savings in China. That's a really, really large number compared to the amount of savings in a country like the United States. But what is very surprising, as we have announced in other channels that I handle, if you haven't subscribed to the 3M's channel, make sure to do that. I'll leave the link in the description below so you can go and see that. But there are several other countries that actually have more savings than China. And if you want to know which one is number one, the World Bank has announced that is Iran. Iran is the country with the highest amount of savings in the world. You wouldn't think that, but nobody's criticizing all those countries. Everybody's looking at China. Why are people not spending? Now, however, even though that's a good problem to have, as in you have people who have money, now they do want to get people spending. They do want to get people to use that money and get that money circulating so that the economy can be propped up a little bit and revitalized. Now, some of the things that were announced is they want people to start going green with their EVs. Is one of the things that was announced. They want people to start changing their fleet, and it's part of the project as well. China wants to go green, wants to have a complete fleet of EV cars in China. That will be the best thing they could have. So this is the right time for people to go and change their internal combustion engine cars for electric vehicles. With all the different brands and all the different budgets that are available in the Chinese market, that is something that the government is hoping that Chinese people are going to do. So you should expect some special pricing and special promotions and some kind of subsidies or help from the government to get people who are on the fence to actually go and change their cars. They also talk about changing electronic devices and things like that. So, for example, at home, and this can also be pushed in terms of green, and right. So, for example, if you have a refrigerator that consumes a lot of energy because it's very old, well, buy a new one that consumes a lot less electricity, a lot less power, and that will be a greater effect on the greening and the environment in China. So, there's ways that the government can actually use policies in order to induce and to promote this consumption, get people to spend a little bit more money. Another huge factor is tourism. People are traveling a lot inside China. That's the thing. Not a lot of foreigners, not a lot of Chinese are traveling abroad, or not in the amounts that they were doing it before COVID. The mood is not there yet to just hit the faraway destinations. There's a lot of travel that takes place to Thailand, to Malaysia, nearby places, but the bulk of travel is actually taking place within China, which is a good thing. And they want to continue this path of people spending in food, beverage, and accommodations, hospitality. That's going to be a very important one. So that has to do with inflation. Inflation at 3% means lowering interest. So when people go and borrow money, they'll have to pay fewer interest on that money, meaning that they will probably want to spend a little bit more. Oh, yes, change a car, or maybe renovate the home, or maybe buy another electronic device or things like that. So there are things that the government can do to actually correct that deflation and turn it into 3% inflation, which is very, very safe, very manageable. It's actually a good thing. So that was one of the things that was announced. The other thing that was announced was the upgrading of manufacturing. This is something that a lot of people were expecting. China is going to allocate 10.4 billion yuan, renminbi, or 1.4 billion US dollars to push the breakthroughs in key technologies. We're literally talking about computer chips. We're literally talking about this race to master the manufacturing of chips. Is such a complicated endeavor that it requires all hands on deck. So quite a lot of money is going to be invested in promoting and stimulating this sector so that researchers and those who manufacture the chips get the best conditions, and everything they need will be there for them in order to break through this barrier that they encounter right now in the size of the chips that they can produce. It's only a matter of time. Successes and really breakthroughs have been taking place. When Gina Raimondo came to Beijing, basically to ensure that China is doing well in terms of the economy, that's when Huawei released their phone, the Mate 60, with the 5G chip that was literally not made abroad. It was made in China. It was something that it was a slap in the face. And it was very interesting to see how they chose that particular day, that particular visit to show that, hey, this is how far we've come. Hang on in there. So yes, that's a very important aspect of what was announced by Li Qiang yesterday. This investment is going to be very important to set the tone for what's next in terms of technologies and applications. We see this with EVs, for example. EVs in China, although Chinese-made EVs, are just way beyond the competition in terms of features, in terms of quality, in terms of safety, and in terms of price. This is why you see America trying to now prevent EVs to go into America. Now, interesting as well, We are now listening to Congress saying, "Oh, they're going to ban TikTok." TikTok is not a Chinese company. TikTok is an American company, and they have an American CEO. ByteDance is Chinese, but they have different companies. It's like Sheraton in China. Yeah, Sheraton in America might get a little bit of royalties from the use of the name and whatnot, but if China were to sanction Sheraton in China, it's Chinese investors who actually are going to lose money. So that's the thing. You're not really hurting ByteDance as such. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to push them to sell to an American company, to disconnect every single tie with ByteDance in Beijing. So it's interesting to see what's taking place over there, the fear, the paranoia, and particularly the manipulation, the protectionism from a country that has enjoyed the benefits of globalization for decades and decades. So wait and see what takes place with that. But this video is called Hi Truth Teller. Nice to see you. Putting shirt. Thank you so much for showing up. Guys, I want to go into some of the news coverage that took place once this presentation, this report was announced and people were attending. It's interesting to see how they're trying to paint things in a negative way. So let's start with AP, right? AP announced that this is how they, and I'm reading actually from the web. It says China's blueprint for its economy in 2024 is replete with goals and promises, but it's also notable for not spelling out specific moves to attain them. Well, tell me, what is a political campaign if not promises in the West? So when Donald Trump says, "Oh, I'm going to build a wall," when Biden says, "Oh, we're going to do this," it's all promises. The difference here is that these promises that are made here in China at the two sessions have continuity. These are people that have been working for decades on the same projects and in the same direction. It's not a competition for your vote. Oh, he says he's going to do that. I'm going to do that. He says he's going to do that. Oh, I'm going to do the opposite. It's so different. There is a sense of continuity in all the different plans and projects that are presented at the two sessions, that are discussed at the two sessions. Some people might say that the two sessions is just rubber stamping whatever has been already discussed. And in a sense, they could be right, because nobody comes there with an idea that's out of left field. Everything that is discussed and actually voted on during the two sessions and decided during the two sessions has been scrutinized. Okay, this makes sense. This is good. This is a great proposal. It's a great chamber where people can share in their local measures and protections and policies what they have been doing. So other areas of the country could say, like, hey, we could do that. Hey, we could liaise with people in this area and they can teach us how they're doing this, how they're doing that. When you think about it, this two sessions is a great opportunity for every single representative to gather ideas and bring back to their localities and try to implement them. So the importance of the two sessions probably has never been understood in the West. They just think it's just, oh, rubber stamping things. No, it's where the country comes to present what they have done and present what they want to do. And in that exercise, there is an amount of detail about what has been done and what has been achieved that is going to be beneficial for every other representative from all the different areas. A lot of people don't know how important representation is here. You see people that are members of the military, are actors, are singers, some are cleaners, some are security guards, some are entrepreneurs. Everybody is represented here. So every single sector in the country is going to present their issues, their problems, their solutions, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful scene to watch a country come together and say, hey, where are we and where are we going and how can we help? They help each other all the time. This is a great thing to see with the two sessions. Now, the next thing that AP says, it is notable for not spelling out the moves to attain these goals. Well, they are not going to tell everybody exactly what they're going to do in their own meetings, in their own gatherings, in their own events, because this is many events that take place during the two sessions. It's not just this one thing. There are big events, but there are also smaller events. At those events, all those details are discussed, and maybe that doesn't make it out into the public. But just because AP hasn't heard it doesn't mean that they don't know exactly what they're going to do. A country that has come so far in 40 years of reform and opening up, they know what they're doing. So it's a little bit obtuse from AP to say something like this. And they continue with the following sentence. They say, the ruling Communist Party's target is to grow the economy by about 5% this year, an ambition that economists say may be hard to attain. That's what they said last year in 2023. What would make it look as impossible to repeat in 2024? Issues that the economy is experiencing are being dealt with. And China has the ability to sort out those problems. For example, the problems with infrastructure not being profitable. Well, that has been the plan from the beginning. Say, for example, these high-speed rails that are not profitable at this point. Well, they knew some lines were not going to be profitable, but they knew that having this high-speed rail developed and reaching every single corner of the country was going to be good for the economy in general. So you balance one thing with another. Now, talking about the real estate, for example, and there's some notes below here about the real estate, but the real estate, the main issue has been with two main companies. So those two main companies were the ones that did not listen to the advice of Beijing's government, telling them to stop doing what they were doing in terms of speculative sales. And what they did is they went out, they got funds outside to continue with the projects that the government told them not to, and with the practices that the government told them that were not safe practices, and now they lost. And this is going to give us a certain influence to what we hear in these reports from Western media. AP talked to a man called James Zimmerman. James Zimmerman is somebody that I follow on Twitter, and I've seen him, personal photos of him with Xi Jinping. So this person is highly connected. It's long-timer in China, in Beijing. And he says that the speech did little to address concerns that have led to foreign businesses to reconsider their investment strategies in China. James Zimmerman is not telling you that the people who are upset with China and the real estate bubble and all those things are the people who were speculating on the real estate. And they lost. It's that simple. The people in China were not really that affected. This real estate bubble is not going to affect the gross the GDP, the gross domestic produce, to an extent, because these are issues that are taking place with these companies, and the government has jumped in and is now going to make them pay. There's no bailout. It's not like in the West. Oh, you messed up, sell your assets, and now you pay. And even though if it's not 100% covered, the government is in a capacity to take these projects and finish them. Those people who were in trouble, who were cheated, who felt mistreated by these development companies, well, the government has already set in place many measures to help them, from tax exemptions, tax reductions, tax refunds, a whole bunch of measures in order to help these people, to make them whole. And whatever project was not finished and was not sold, the government is going to make sure to finish them up and sell them as low income housing. So yes, it's not ideal, but the ones who are suffering are actually outside, the people who were betting on this real estate bubble to keep on growing forever. And you cannot blame China. You really cannot blame China. Since many, many years, 5 years ago, you could hear reports of the government saying like, hey, this is speculative purchasing of apartments and housing needs to stop. It was around then that they imposed a new law that said that you cannot sell an apartment within 5 years of buying it. So think about that. People were buying apartments and selling them 2, 3 months later at a huge profit because the bubble just kept going on, and it was just pumping that bubble, and everybody was making money. When China said, stop, we're not doing that anymore, these two companies went outside and keep getting financing to continue developing projects exactly the way the government told them not to. So yeah, the loss is out there. Now, what else does AP say? Putting shirt, how delightful regarding those who lost money on the real estate bubble. Look, one of the things that I've said this in other videos, but this is the first time that I say it in a live stream. One of the things that has happened with this lowering of prices of housing is that first ownership of housing is going through the roof. No AP, no Reuters, no CNN is giving you any data on how high that number is. Remember, everybody, I myself, felt left out when I thought about, okay, maybe I should buy a home. It was already too late. I could really not afford to buy a home, I don't know, 5 years ago. 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, it was not possible for me. And when this dip happened, I'm like, whoa, this is the time. And my wife and I, bought a home last December. This reality is not only for myself. This is happening to a lot of people around China, or people who already had a home actually get to jump into this real estate train and get a second home or a third home because it's going to be beneficial for them. So you might see a lot of people jumping on that train very soon. This is not going to stop. The market is going to take some time to actually go back and climb up to normal levels of trading and house sales prices. Now, the other thing that is interesting is the stock market and how foreigners were taking away funds from the stock market. This did take place, but what people are not telling you is that if you look at them today, those indexes have gone up already. Now, there are individual companies that may not be reporting excellent situation, excellent condition, excellent numbers, but in general, the stock market in China is bouncing back already. And I have SL Kantan, the person that I follow on Twitter from India, to thank for that particular bit of advice. He actually showed us a picture. I'll probably put a link in the description down below for you to see what is actually taking place 11 months after the dip in the stock market. Now, Zimmerman continues saying there's no reform, no liberalization, no action plan, and no messaging of reassurance. Again, this fact is not known. These people don't get access to the small meetings where the steps are being discussed. This is really disingenuous when you think about it. Of course they know what they're going to do. Of course they have an idea. Of course they're deciding which path to follow. They're not going to announce it to the public. There's no need for that. Why would you show your hand to the public? Why would you show your hand to your adversaries? They know what to do. They know what they're going to do. It's just that the media doesn't know it. Just because they don't know it doesn't mean that it's not there. So Zimmerman is an interesting character in that sense. All right. Now let us move on to Something else that was said by Reuters, by AP. Lee said that China will focus on supporting research and industries to attain breakthroughs. So we talked about that already. This is something that they're going to be pushing. Manufacturing chips and becoming the competitor to beat in chip manufacturing is China's objective. Once they get there, there's just no stopping them, and they know that, they understand that, they want that edge, so nothing is going to stop them. They know they have the funds, they know they have the talent, because it's not just about putting money. You need to have the people who know how to do this. And this is why we're going to talk about the military in a second, and Taiwan is so important to this. But even without considering Taiwan, China has enough scientists and enough researchers to just go at it and get it done. We see the breakthroughs that have taken place in 2023. We're waiting for what's going to take place this year. Okay. This is something else that AP was reporting. They were saying that the government will boost spending on research and development by 10%. Military spending is due to increase 7.2%. Now, let's talk about this particular situation. We are seeing what is taking place, for example, in the Philippines. The Coast Guard of China is making sure that the Philippines do not build the barracks that they want in the shoal where the Sierra Madre was run aground intentionally in order to claim it as Philippine territory. There's several things to mention here. Number one, even the CIA says that this territory is disputed. Let me give you an idea. Let's say, for example, that your parents passed away. Now there is their estate, and you have several friends, several siblings, brothers, sisters. They all want to know what's going to happen with the estate, but that hasn't been resolved. That hasn't been decided. And then one of your brothers decides to start building on a land that hasn't been decided who it belongs to, who gets it, or in what percentage. That's exactly what Philippines is doing. They are trying to expand on an area that is not decided who it belongs to. Now, a lot of people say like, oh, but is China wanting to control the area? That's not exactly what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is they want to preserve this area because it's pristine. They don't want pollution. They don't want barracks. They don't want people. They don't want toilets. They don't want food scraps. They don't want the area to be damaged. They want it to be left alone. This is the other thing to consider with regards to this particular show, is that there is nothing that can be built there that is actually going to be of any significance. Nothing can be built there that will give military advantage or is going to be beneficial to them logistically. Nothing. So you got to step back and ask, why is Bongbong Marcos doing this? Why is he building this? The only reason is to upset China. Now, the danger with this, as we saw yesterday, is an incident. If there's an incident where
Could you try again?
Sorry. If there's an incident where somebody passes, where somebody dies, where there's a fatality, that changes the whole picture, and that's the risk of these silly games that Philippines is playing in the show. Now, talk about Taiwan. Taiwan belongs to China. Anybody who doesn't see that as the reality needs to refer to the United Nations, needs to refer to the three communiques, needs to refer to the United States State Department in the website when they acknowledge that China the one China principle, basically that Beijing is the government of the whole of China and Taiwan belongs to China. It's all about the PRC. But in all this manipulation of diplomacy and manipulation of politics, America keeps on messing with Taiwan.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, my Siri thinks I'm talking to her. So it is really important to understand that this is a response to what America is doing. America keeps on selling armament, keeps on selling weapons, keeps on bringing troops. Now they have stationed special forces in Jingmen. It's an island. I am right now in Xiamen. That island is just a few kilometers from Jiangmen. Just revert the situation and think about, I don't know, Russian military, Chinese military, North Korean military, 20 kilometers from Florida, 20 kilometers from Los Angeles, 20 kilometers from San Francisco. Do you understand that? It's not paranoia from China. It's reality. Is there people on the ground in Taiwan getting ready to attack, getting ready to destabilize the region? So it makes all the sense in the world for China to prepare itself. And that's all language, right? MIC, pundits, politicians, they'll present that as, oh, you see, they're getting ready to invade, when it's actually not so. But we don't really control what media can say, but we can actually at least let people know what the truth is. Now, let us move on to Reuters, right? Reuters was also quite critical of what China announced during the two sessions yesterday. It says Chinese Premier Li Qiang's vision for the country contains an inherent contradiction. Let's talk about that. His aim to transform the economic model may be incompatible with keeping his growth rate steady at around 5%. So they say you cannot transform China's economic model, which is basically moving towards higher technology and innovation and development and research. You cannot do that and expect not to pay a price, because this transition is going to make other sectors suffer. Well, China does things in a way that the West cannot do, that the West is unable to do. Is they can rally together and they can prioritize what they're going to tackle head on and what is going to be just maintained and sustained. You don't experience losses when you do that, when you keep things running in a certain way without losses, but all eyes are on the future and the newer technologies that China wants to develop. They can totally do both. There is no contradiction in this. Now, they talk about, okay, what about local debts? What about these local governments that need to finance their projects? And, well, if you're going to put money into newer technologies and whatnot, how are you going to take care of your local little communities that need solutions to their problems, need development and need growth? They are doing something that is called rural revitalization. These are projects in which local governments take charge of their own finances. This is something that a lot of people don't understand about China. A lot of the finances in each province or in each special region stays in those provinces and regions. The share with the central government is important, but the majority of the funds really stay in that region. So local governments are doing now things that are really interesting. I just finished a project where the government is investing government funds into different projects in different areas like AI and higher technologies, and the dividends from those investments come to the town itself. This is a very small village, and Just last year, they announced dividends that were shared to the local residents of the village. The minimum dividend that was shared was 47,000 renminbi per person. We're not talking about per family. We're talking about per person. That's 6,000 euros per person. So if there's 4 people in the family, that's 24,000 euro in that year, dividends from work that the government has done for the people. And you're going to say, wow, that's quite a lot of money. You haven't heard everything. That's actually 1/3 of the profit that the government has made in this particular village. Because what the government does is they take 66%, 2/3 of that money, and they use it to fund the development of their projects. 66% of the money that they brought to the town, now they're going to use it to continue developing. And the development that I saw in that town is fantastic. You can see the contrast between the old town and the new town. You feel like you're in Silicon Valley. It's insane what they're doing. So that's rural revitalization. The dependence of localities on Beijing itself isn't that great. They have a great deal of autonomy and they have a great deal of resources to deal with their finances. So for Reuters to be saying that this is a contradiction shows that they're not in tune. They haven't heard the entire story. Beijing can totally take money from all these provinces and allocate that to, hey, let's develop research, let's work on these chips. And the provinces and regions are going to be taking care of themselves the way that they have always been doing. This idea that all development and all funding comes from centralized Beijing, it's incorrect. The objectives and the prerogatives and the priorities do come from Beijing, but the solutions, the funding and the resources are most of the time local. Beijing takes charge of the larger projects, the bigger projects, but locally everything is handled at these local administrative units. So it's something that there is no contradiction there. This is absolutely, totally possible. Okay, Reuters goes on to say that Li pledged to expand domestic consumption while curbing industrial overcapacity, local government debt risk, and supporting only justified property sector projects. So let's break this down very, very easily. Expand domestic consumption. Lower interest rates. What do you do when money is cheap? You go get some money, you spend some money, and when you have more money, you spend it. So this is not something that China cannot handle. We're not talking about crazy numbers like Argentina's inflation at 200 and something percent. No, we're talking about 3% inflation and getting people to consume a little bit more. As I said earlier, with the proper policies, people will take the jump and make expenses that they were not thinking of doing because the situation is right. Like in my case, hey, let's go buy an apartment, right? I wasn't really thinking about it, but hey, now that they have controlled this real estate bubble and the prices have gone down, I'm jumping in. I'm getting an apartment. So you see what I mean? There are things that the government can do to actually achieve these goals. Nothing is out of reach of impossible, unfathomable. Now, the next thing that they say is, where was I? Okay, curbing industrial overcapacity. There is no overcapacity in China. China is the manufacturer of the world. China is, through BRI, through BRICS, and through all kinds of agreements, trying to reach the global south and become the provider of the global south. The more agreements and the more trade is done with the global south, we're talking Africa, Latin America, all of Asian countries, Southeast Asia, the more trade there is there, the easier it is to replace some of the largest trade partners or trade destinations, like, for example, the United States. which is now closing doors to Chinese products. You close your doors, okay, that's not ideal. But then let's conquer Latin America. Let's conquer Africa. Let's bring them into the real of consumption, development, infrastructure, so many things that have been done over there, things that were completely overlooked by the West, by America, back when they were the actual power and had all the influence. They wasted their position as leaders of the world, and now they're blaming China for taking the steps that are necessary to help those countries. They never helped Africa. They never helped Latin America. All they did was exploiting them. Now China is coming with, well, let's say, for example, low-tech manufacturing. Well, yeah, sure. Move it to other countries in Southeast Asia. Move it to Vietnam. Move it to Thailand. Take it all the places. Take it to India. That's absolutely fine. Why? Because once they manufactured this low manufacturing products, then they can sell it to China, and it's going to be beneficial to all these countries. They're going to improve their trade balance, and when they get richer, they will consume high level products from China. Do you see what I mean? So this changing the economic model of China takes time, yeah, but China can chew gum and walk at the same time. All right, guys, let's continue with the last thing that I wanted to share with you. It says that they were saying about supporting only justified property sector projects. Again, we've talked about a lot of this in the 3Ms, the channel that I invite you to go and subscribe to. We carry that with Jerry Gray and Ian English. And it's a really, really interesting podcast style kind of video. But talking about this property sector projects, they were wrong. They were selling in ways that made absolutely no sense. Like they were, for example, these two companies that we were talking about, right? They were asking the salespeople, hey, if you sell a project, I'll give you 20% of the profit. So what would the salesperson do if it's not being sold? Goes borrow money, buys an apartment. Now the apartment is sold. He waits until the bubble goes up, sells it. The apartment that he was supposed to sell to somebody else, he goes and sells it to somebody else after a few months. Repays the loan, gets his 20%, and probably even made profit on that increase in the price. So people were going crazy selling things that had absolutely no structure. There was no plan to develop projects. It's just, okay, build there. And people were buying things on blueprints. It's just, okay, I buy it and I sell it quickly and I make a few 100,000 RMB, even 1 million RMB on this particular project. And that's what the salespeople were doing. And people will hold it, wait for it until it was time to, boom, make another huge profit. So people were buying only to speculate on these properties. These places were not being bought to be lived in. 2, 3, 4 owners down the road in a term of a year and a half came somebody like, oh, I want to buy an apartment. So the person who wanted to live in that apartment ended up paying exorbitant amounts of money for an apartment that had been inflated through several owners in the term of a couple of months. So that's what China stopped. That's what he means, justified property sector projects. You're not going to be building like crazy to just exploit this bubble of real estate. Houses are for living, not for speculating. That resonates a lot with me, as I just told you. Okay. The last thing that I wanted to say, guys, is investors and consumers. Reuters says that investors and consumers have become skeptical about the implementation of these measures from the government, and this risk exacerbating a confidence crisis abroad. Again, who's unhappy with China's real estate market? Who's unhappy? Well, the Westerners who were funding these two real estate companies, the Westerners who were, think somebody like Kyle Bass. He was shorting, he was playing short with the stock exchange. And when he lost, of course he's bitter. So all these people, all these pundits that are there talking about, there's no confidence, we shouldn't invest here, we shouldn't, they're just bitter losers. The truth of the matter is that China is sorting out its issues and is moving ahead with its plan to develop new technologies and to keep the economy steady, solid, and growing. 5% is totally doable if you look at the situation was in 2023, just coming out of COVID. 5% coming out of COVID, and now you think that you can't do 5% in 2024? That's silly. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and well, thank you very much for being with me today. Remember that if you want to support the work that I do, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And if you want to, well, really support me, make sure to hit the link in the description down below where you can actually buy me a cup of coffee. I appreciate all of you for watching this. We went on for 50 minutes. Thank you so much. I'll keep you posted on what else takes place during the two sessions and what other things are of interest. Right now, the West doesn't get it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Until I see you again, take it easy and bye for now.